Hi, everyone. This is Craig Morgan, president and founder of Blended Together Forever. And today you are in for a treat, and I am in for a treat. My friend Ariel Delgado has agreed to share his personal testimony, and it is unbelievably powerful. When we talked not long ago, I said, "This is so powerful, Ariel. Would you consider putting it on video?" And he said, "I'd be honored too, that if the Lord could use that to be a blessing." So that's why we're here today. And I can't wait to introduce you to him here in a second. But before I introduce Ariel to you, I want you just to relax and just listen with an open mind and an open heart and hear not only his personal story, but hear where he was wounded, as we all are. As a child, and I just will let him rock and roll here in a second. But beyond that, what he's doing now is he is a leader with Family ID out of Oklahoma City. And he is specifically trying to reach the Latino community and translate so many things that they've created in English now in Spanish. And I am honored. So Ariel, thank you for doing this, and may the Lord bless us as we discuss. And so obviously start right here, share and just start with your personal story.
Good morning, Craig. How are you, my brother?
Great. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you, Jesus. So I just want to say good morning to all the families watching this. So Blended Together Forever, and then Family ID families, and any other family that watch this in the next few days. So yeah, Craig, thank you for giving me a chance. So I just want to start with a phrase that I love from Family ID. Every family end up somewhere. Only few end up somewhere on purpose. Amen. So I love questions. So I'll throw that question out there for you to think about it. Do you know if your family will end up somewhere on purpose or by accident? I want to share my personal testimony, my journey with you. So I want to invite you to talk about the last 5 years of my life. They've been amazing. They have been amazing 5 years. And some people will call me a little crazy because I went through a lot, but knowing was out after my struggles, I would do it again. So, but it wasn't always like that. So I want to take you back in time. So probably, 35 years. So when I was born in a small, beautiful country in South America called Uruguay, surrounded by water. It's between Argentina and Brazil, the last one in South America. So beautiful country. So I remember when I was 8 years old, my sister was 9. Well, I have a sister that is 9 months older than me. And then now I have twin brothers that are 10 years younger than me. But I remember when I was 8, me and my sister working at the farm with my dad and my mom. My dad was the manager of the farm. So we're talking about a large farm, cattle farm. So we were riding horses, milking cows. And those were the best years of my life. My mom was the cook there. And man, everything was sustainable. So that was awesome for me to learn all the values from my dad: respect, get up early, shake hands, keep your word. All that was amazing. So at 8 years old, I remember that my parents lost their job at the farm. So what does that mean? We also lost the home because we were living at the farm. So immediately, overnight, we found ourselves homeless. So we moved to a little house that my parents managed to buy or to purchase working at the farm. But this house was not finished. It had a little bathroom outside, no running water, no heat or air conditioning. So we moved into the little house, and shortly after that, we started seeing some things that I didn't see before at the farm from my family. And I love my family, and I love my dad and my mom, and I learned a lot from them. But moving to that little house, we started struggling. And the first struggle was financial. Financially, we were struggling. And I always tell people that my parents did the best they could with what they had. So I remember when I was 9, after living in that house for about a year, I remember some stories with me and my sister carrying buckets of water from one of our family members down the road because we didn't have running water. So we needed to go to our neighbor's house and get, water and carry water with some, 20 gallon buckets. I remember the funny stories of my sister, we used a broom handle to be able to carry those buckets, because we were little, we were still little. So, but that became a norm for us. So, but really, I started seeing my dad going from this amazing guy of supporting the family, always encouraging us, to little by little, he started going downhill. Doing what? Drinking. So he started drinking. First was every day at home on the table, but then that escalated quickly. So I know now that my father was struggling keeping the family together and really providing for us, because it was rough. So at 11 years old, I decided to stop going to school because I needed to work. So it was time to work. Even though I was a kid, 11, I felt that I was asked to be a man, and I was okay with it. I was okay with it because I needed the help. So working out in the field with my dad, picking up potatoes, corn, anything that was available out there, we were doing it. So, and every penny that I was bringing in, every dollar I was bringing in, it was to support my family. So, but my father's drinking started getting worse little by little. By my 11 years old, so my father was going to bars, and a couple of days a week he was drinking too much. And I want to say this: my father was a great man. He taught me a lot of values, a lot of great things. But then he became addicted to alcohol. And when he was drinking, he was a different guy. So I remember that, when I was 11, I was going out, working in the field with strangers. Some days my dad was there, some days he wasn't. So, and remember, I'm still a kid. I'm 11, I'm still a kid, but in my mind, I was a man. So I was just, man, I need to grow up. I need to, do this. So, but when you're 11, you're exposed to a lot of things, especially with strangers working out in the field. And let me tell you, at 11 years old, I went through an experience that it changed my life forever. And I want you to look at it from the point of view of, yeah, he did struggle, but he's here today. That struggle really made me the person that I am today, and I will explain that. So when I was 11 years old, being by myself, working out in the field, I was abused sexually by another man. And I never shared that with anybody until February of 2016. Again, I'm 42. This happened when I was 11. So do the math. So 2016, that was the first time that I shared that with someone. Let me tell you why I didn't share that with anybody. I learned, I love my country. I love Uruguay. Uruguay is in my heart. My roots are in Uruguay. But I learned back home that to be a man, you don't share. You don't talk about your struggles. You're a man. You're a macho. You push forward. You figure it out. You don't cry, for sure. That was a big thing for me. You don't cry, and then you do not ask for help. You're not supposed to ask for help. If you ask for help, guess what? You're weak. You're not a man. So that's what I learned throughout the years, is to not ask for help. So, but that really was a deep wound that I had in my heart. And that wound got infected. And then it took over my heart, my mind, my body. And shortly after that, I was going to bars with my dad. I remember being 13, 14, 15 years old, and I was going to bars with my dad. And that really, I learned how to become a man. And again, my dad did the best he could. But at the bar, I was hearing these stories from guys, from friends, from my dad, that, hey, to be a man, you have to have a lot of girls. You have to have, relationship with them, and you do whatever it takes to take them to bed, even if it's lying. And again, I'm not saying anything about those guys. Those guys did the best they could. So, but that's what I did. Little by little, I started, started living that lifestyle of having a lot of girls. Even when you marry, the wife stays at home, you go out and you do your business. So, I remember by 16 years old, I was already heavily drinking, going out with a lot of girls, partying. And also I became addicted to porn, even though back then we didn't have technology. We didn't have cell phones. There was magazines. There was things that you could do. And little by little, that started becoming my lifestyle. So dating, a lot of girls, drinking, porn. But I know this now, all of that was a symptom of a problem. The problem was deep in my heart. That was that wound that I had from when I was a child. And then when I was 17, my dad left the house. So that was another deep wound that, you know, went straight to my heart. And it was just, man, pressing on the first wound. But again, I don't ask for help. I don't share, push forward, figure it out. So, and so at the time, my father left the house. So my sister and I, my mom, we took over the house with my little brothers, and we figured it out, and it was okay. But then fast forward, when I was 23, almost 23, the economy went down really, really bad in Uruguay. So I just made the decision to leave Uruguay, and that is when, you know, America came, you know, in my radar. So let me share a little bit about how, you know, I ended up in America. So I was dating a girl back in 2001, and she was moving to Georgia in February of 2002. And she said, "Hey, you want to come with me?" I was like, "Sure." I've been thinking about going somewhere because this is bad, and I need to support my mom and my sister and my brothers. So she moved, and then I was building A-frame houses at the beach. I had a little company. We were doing well, but when the economy went down, I ended up selling everything, all my tools, and me to be able to support my family for the next few months. So January came of 2002, and I was supposed to leave, but I didn't have any money. So my girlfriend at the time sent me the money for the ticket, for the plane ticket to come to Georgia with her. And that's what I did. I bought the ticket, and I had a visitor visa. So I was coming in as a visitor with the intention of staying and you know, and supporting my family. So I was supposed to leave in February of 2002. So a couple of days prior to my trip, I decided to cancel my trip because I broke up with my girlfriend. She was in America already. And second, I had the ticket, but I didn't have any money. So I remember I was like, "Hey, I'm not going." I told my mom I'm not going anywhere. But I was really, really depressed and sad because, again, if I don't leave, and this may sound bad, but if I don't leave, we're not going to make it. So the day of my trip, I woke up in the morning, I was having breakfast with my mom, and I was just really, really down and depressed. I was like, I can't stay here. The future of my family depends on me going somewhere and making some money. So I called my best friend. I was like, "Hey, I don't know what to do." And he goes, "Ariel, what do you need?" I was like, "Well, I don't have any money. I'm coming into America as a visitor. I'm landing tomorrow morning." And I broke up with my girlfriend, and I don't have any money. So I remember that I called the travel agency, and I changed my ticket to New York, to Kennedy Airport in New York, thinking I have my cousin told me a while back he had a friend in New York, so I can call him up and tell him to help me. But I'm talking about hours before I boarded the plane. So then my friend goes, "Ariel, I have $50. You can take it." So that was the beginning of my journey that I was like, man, I'm going. So I called my mom. I was like, "Mom, I'm going." I got my little suitcase with a few things in it. I called one of my uncles, and I was like, "Can you take me to the airport?" I was about 2 hours from the airport, and I live out in the country. So he goes, "Ariel, I can take you. I don't have brakes in my truck. I can take you maybe to the first traffic light of the Capitol, but I cannot go into the city." I was like, "That's fine. You just drop me off there. I'll figure it out." So from there, I call another friend, and he delivers vegetables in the capital of Uruguay. And I told him the story, and I was like, "Can you pick me up here at this time and take me to the airport? I'm leaving." He goes, "Yes, my truck is full of vegetables, but I'll meet you there, take you." And so I got to the airport 2 hours prior to the plane, you know, leaving Uruguay. So now I'm here, but now I'm landing in Kennedy, New York tomorrow morning, and I don't have a place to stay. So I from a pay phone, from a public phone, I call my cousin, which lives in Uruguay, and I was like, "Hey, I'm leaving. Can you help me with your friend in New York?" And he goes, "Ariel, sure. Give me a few days." I was like, "I don't have a few days. I'm landing in basically 13 hours in New York." He goes, "You are crazy." I was like, "Yes, I am, but I'm leaving. Can you help me?" He goes, "Sure. Let me call my friend in New York." So I boarded the plane. I had Uruguay to Brazil, Brazil to New York. So when I boarded the plane in Uruguay, I didn't know what I was sleeping the next night. So because I couldn't talk to my cousin. So in my first layover in Brazil, I called my cousin back, and I was like, "Hey, did you talk to your friend?" He goes, "No." And then right before I boarded the plane, I called my cousin again, and I was like, "Have you talked to your friend? I'm landing in 9 hours." He goes, "Yes, I did." Called him. So I called this guy in New York, and he goes, "Hey, I live up upstate Poughkeepsie. So I can't go get you. You're landing in 9 hours, but here's my address. So for me, that was a huge blessing. Even though I wasn't a believer, I know today that God was guiding me with those little angels. So I boarded the plane in Brazil, so I have a place to stay. So I remember I landed the very next morning at the Kennedy airport, and I went through security. A guy from Cuba interviewed me because I didn't speak English. So he spoke Spanish. That was another great thing. So someone that spoke Spanish interviewed me and asked me, where are you going? How much money do you have? And I told him $450. So yes, I did lie, but I know God has forgiven me already for that. So I left the airport and I was the happiest man alive. So, but now I needed to make it to the train station in Manhattan. So I took a taxi, a guy that spoke Spanish. He charged me $45 in 2002 to take me from Kennedy Airport to Grand Central train station. $45. So do the math. I had 50. So I walk into Grand Central with $5 in my pocket, but I was happy. I was the happiest man alive, I'll tell you, because I made it. I'm here. So I went to a police officer and told him, basically in Spanish. He understood, and he took me to a police officer from Puerto Rico that spoke Spanish. Again, speaking about little angels that God has put it in my life. So I talked to this police officer from Puerto Rico. He spoke Spanish, took me to the train ticket window, and he bought me the ticket. He bought me the ticket. It was, I think, $15, $14. I don't remember exactly now. He took me to the train and he told me, hey, Poughkeepsie is about 2 hours from here. So when you see the sign, get off and call your friend. And that is what I did. The very next day, I was working as a dishwasher in Cold Spring, New York, in a 5-star restaurant, and I was making $5 an hour. But I was just amazed. First $50, my first check was $50. My first 3 or 4 days of work, I sent it straight back to my mom, and I was like, man, I'm here. But in my mind, when I moved to America, I was like, man, things are going to get better. This is a chance that I have. All those demons that are chasing me down from my past, they're going to go away. That's what I was thinking. And they did for about 5-6 months. But after 6 months, all that guilt and shame and that wound started to come up again. And I'll tell you that there was not even one day that I will go to bed and not feel guilt, shame for what happened to me, but also for what I did. Okay. So 6 months after that, I met someone that, I ended up married, Gloria. I met her, and we dated, long distance for a while. She was in Colorado at the time. So a year later, I moved to Colorado with her. And that, again, that was another chance that I had to erase my past, because I wanted to erase my past, but I didn't know how. I needed to deal with the wounds in my heart. So moved to Colorado. I remember I had 3 jobs in Colorado, which is, again, when I moved to America, I was like, this is not really hard work. Hard work was back home, mixing concrete by hand, working out in the field. So washing dishes, it wasn't hard work for me. So, but I started working in Colorado, and Gloria took me to Chipotle Mexican Grill to eat a burrito one day. And I loved it. I loved what was going on behind the counter. So I asked for an application, and they hired me as a crew with the potential of being a manager, but I didn't speak English. So I started working as a crew / kitchen manager in training. And I'll tell you that Chipotle was the first company that believed in me. They told me how good I was. They invest in me. They sent me to college. They sent me to English classes. And after what I think it was 4 or 5 months, I went back home and I was like, Gloria, I need to make an investment here. And she goes, what do you mean? I was like, I need to quit my at least 2 jobs and focus at Chipotle. Chipotle is the company that I see, the company that I was looking for. So I did that, and I focused at Chipotle. And about 2 years after that, I was running that restaurant that I started working at as a crew. And again, I was learning English. I was leading that restaurant. So and at around the same time, we had our first daughter, Angelina. She's 12 today. So we had our first daughter. Again, every major event in my life, it was, in my mind, it was an opportunity for me to really erase and start from zero. But it didn't happen because I didn't deal with the wounds in my heart. And again, I remember being a macho. You don't ask for help. So that was my DNA. So fast forward, 4.5 years later, I was running, I remember that Chipotle had a restaurateur program in place that you needed to interview with the owner of the company and the CEO of the company to be able to pass to become a restaurateur. And that's what we did. They came to my restaurant, they interviewed my team. We became a restaurateur restaurant. And for me, that was just amazing. I was the only few in the country becoming a restaurateur. And then Chipotle used my story. And this is not about me. You will get this at the end. But Chipotle used my story on a brochure that I happen to have here with me across the country to motivate people. I was like, man, this is just dream come true. But I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy, but I didn't know why. So, and then a year later, Juliana was born. Juliana now is going to be 11. So, I have 2 daughters, beautiful marriage. So, shortly after that, my boss came to me and said, Ariel, I need someone in Oklahoma. Would you move to Oklahoma to oversee Oklahoma and parts of Kansas as an area manager? I was like, for sure. So I talked to my family and we ended up moving to Oklahoma. And I started seeing the Chipotles in Oklahoma, and my job was to develop people, and that's what I did. And everything was going well. So back in 2016, February 2016, I was making over $200,000. We had 2 or 3 properties, a boat, jet ski, an RV, everything that you can imagine. American dream, right? However, I wasn't happy. So it was February 5th of 2016. I had a burning desire in my heart for the first time, to be honest, and for the first time to ask for help. So that's what I did. I sat down with my wife and I shared with her, this is what I have done. And let me tell you one thing. I never stopped living the lifestyle that I learned back home throughout my marriage. So throughout my 12 years of marriage, I continue the lifestyle that I learned back home. And that's not an excuse. I can tell you, yes, that's what I learned. That's what I didn't know better. I'm responsible for what I did 100%. But February 5th, I sat down with my wife and I shared with her everything. If I have to do it again, I will probably ask for help before I unload that on her. But I was just honest. I've been unfaithful to you multiple times. You know, I drink, I'm addicted to porn. By 2016, I mean, all this was available, you know, technology. So it was so easy for me to watch porn 3, 4, 5 times a week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. And so she didn't take it very well. She didn't. She asked me to leave the house. That's what I did. I left the house on February 5th of 2016, stayed in a hotel in Oklahoma City. And I was on the 3rd floor, I remember. But that day, life didn't make sense anymore. And for a long time, I had, you know, thoughts of committing a suicide. And I didn't know why. And I will tell you in a second why. I know why now. So that night, from like 7 p.m. until 2 in the morning, I struggled. Listen to this. Men out there watching, I struggle with one question. Ariel, do you need help? No, I don't. I'm a man. I don't ask for help. I figured it out. And that is what dragged me. And I dragged my family, excuse my language, through hell because I didn't ask for help. Because I wasn't vulnerable enough to say, you know what, I'm broken. I need help. So that night I struggled with that question. And I almost ended it that night. And I'm glad because every time that I thought about ending, you know, committing a suicide, you know, I just had an image of my girls. And I know that was God showing me, don't do it. Someone out there needs you. And I'm glad I didn't. So at 2 a.m. that night, let me tell you, I called a lot of people in America and also back home that night. Nobody picked up the phone. I don't think that was a coincidence. So I think that was God really, you know, guiding me. So at 2 a.m., I was like, I need to do something. I don't want to do anything stupid. So I went across the street to a hospital called St. Anthony. And that's what they do. They deal with people that are, again, depressed, you know, with thoughts of committing a suicide. I walk in there and they did an evaluation on me. And I remember 2 doctors came into my room that night and said, Mr. Delgado, do you really want the help? I was like, yes, I'm ready. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm here for a reason. And the doctor goes, hey, the only help that we have tonight at 2 a.m. is to send you to a mental hospital. They sent me to a mental hospital called Cedar Ridge in Oklahoma City. I was depressed. I was devastated. I remember the police officer came over and took me to the hospital in a police car. And I walk into the hospital, and the nurses were asking me, "Why are you here? You don't have any cuts. You don't have anything." I was like, "I'm here for a reason." So I went to bed that night. Imagine, I don't know if you can imagine this, but in a mental hospital, they put you in a room with the bed and a pillow, and that is it. They take everything away from you because people try to, do things in there. So it was really bad. I woke up the very next morning, and really, that's when reality hit me the very next morning. I was in there. I was locked. You can't leave. You're in a mental hospital. And I saw a lot of things in there that, man, it just added to my depression. So I went to bed that night after classes, lunch, and all that. I went to bed that night, February 6th, and I couldn't take the pain anymore. And let me tell you that in my mind, I always thought, well, God is not real. He doesn't exist. If he's out there, if there's a chance that he exists, he doesn't even care about my problems. And let me tell you, he does. Doesn't matter how big or how small your problems are, he's always there. But he will not force that on me. So that night I went to bed, and it was about 10 p.m. when I got off the bed, and I was just crying. I was depressed. I was devastated. So I got off the bed and I got on my knees. I didn't know how to pray. I'm not going to lie to you. I prayed this amazing prayer because I didn't know how to pray. But I was screaming at God. I was mad at him. I was just furious. I was calling him names. And I think he got tired of me calling him names. And I remember, God, if you're there, show it to me. I can't do this anymore on my own. I need help. And after begging him, he showed up. Literally, I felt that someone reaching to my chest that night and took that dirty, poisoned heart out and gave me a new heart. I was confused for a while. Yes, I'm not going to lie to you. There was it didn't hit me for a few hours. So, but I felt happiness, and I was hearing voices. I was like, God, is it you? And he was replying, yes, it's me, and I have a purpose. But again, I'm in a mental hospital. I'm depressed. So I was like, I'm hearing voices, so I'm probably crazy. That's what I thought for about a couple hours. But then I went to bed knowing that something has changed. I saw hope. I wanted to ask for help. I wanted to do a lot of things. I wanted to read the Bible. I woke up the very next day. I was a new man. I started reading the Bible, reading, writing. I wanted to do so many things. But again, reality was I'm in a mental hospital. And I have a mess outside of the hospital that I have to take care of. So 5 days. I was 5 days in the hospital. And finally, I left, and I went straight to Life Church. Life Church, close to my house in Edmond, Oklahoma. The pastor was there. He's never there. I mean, they have 2,000 or 3,000 members in this church, so he's never there. He was there that day. He took me in, and I was a mess. He sent me to, he gave me some counseling. He sent me to Greg Gunn, the founder of Family ID, and then he sent me to Trey Dixon, the founder of True North Ministries. And I started surrounding myself with Christian men, and that really helped. But I went home, and she was not having it. She asked me to leave the house, which I did. I left the house. I got a little apartment, and I'll tell you that was devastating for me, leaving the house. And but little by little, I became a volunteer at my church. And from the beginning, I always had voices in my mind. I struggled with this for at least a year and a half. After leaving the hospital, I struggled with pornography. If I tell you that God erased everything right away, I will be lying to you. Again, this has been part of my life for over 25 years. And I want to stop for a second here. The first step for me was recognizing that I was broken, that I needed help, and then for sure taking that help. But I don't know what he's struggling with today, but just the first step is to see it as a problem and ask for help. And then you start. It's a process. For me, it was a process. So if you're in that process right now, don't get discouraged. There's some days that the enemy will try to to come back and say you can't do that. You're that guy. You're the guy that's addicted to porn. You're the guy that wanted to commit a suicide in the hotel. So, but you know what? Keep pushing forward because it's a process. Keep in mind there's a process. So in the middle of all this, I was leading 220 people at Chipotle. I couldn't lead anybody. I couldn't even get out of bed. That's how depressed I was during this time, living in my apartment. And then on top of that, I needed to lead 220 people. I couldn't. So I lost my job. So I went from $200,000 to $40,000, supporting two houses now. And I mean, my finances went down like, man, they got depleted. I mean, and within a year. So, but I was becoming a volunteer, a life church. I was becoming a volunteer with Greg Gunn. And that's when I took the family ID workshop, and that changed my life. It gave me some identity as a family. But still I was struggling. 6 months after that, I made the decision to get baptized. In my mind, right? In my mind, I was like, man, I'm going to accept Jesus Christ in my heart. Everything's going to get better, right? That's what I was thinking. Thank you, Jesus. So I get baptized. The very next day, I received divorce paperwork. I was served. And I remember I got on my knees and I was just crying. I was bawling. I was like, God, really? This is what I get for giving you my heart? And I didn't get it, okay? I didn't get it. So I made the decision not to fight anything. And at the time, for sure, I made the decision to I didn't hire a lawyer. But I'll tell you that when you get served, it's like a train coming at you. You can't stop it. Especially when it gets to court and attorneys get involved. It's like a train coming at you. Get out of the way. You won't be able to stop it. I didn't want to get divorced, but I just decided to do whatever they asked me to do in court. So that lasted about a year and a half. So throughout that process with attorneys, it's not cheap. Believe me, having two attorneys and going to court, it was devastating emotionally for me, but it's also, that took all that finances. So let me fast forward here a little bit to beginning of 2018. It was around the 8th of January of 2018. My faith, my walk with God was going great, but everything else was not. And I get it. It was because my own decisions, my bad decisions for years. I was facing the consequences of my actions. So January of 2018, going from this $200,000 American dream, having home, family, everything. I thought that I hit bottom in the hospital. I thought for me that was bottom. Man, this cannot get worse than this, and it wasn't. So January 8th of 2018, I found myself sleeping in my truck at Walmart in Edmond because I didn't have anything. I lost everything, including my family. And I get a little emotional because that day is when God really got a hold of me and said, Ariel, and that morning, it was a cold morning, and sleeping in my truck with sleeping bags, and that wasn't a problem for me. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying here, oh, poor Ariel. No, I was good with that because back home, we went through a lot worse than that. So I was devastated for sure. But that morning, God asked me a question. Ariel, you lost all your finances. You lost everything, including your family. Am I enough today? Am I enough to meet all you need? And I was like, yes, God, you are enough. And from that day, let me tell you, from that day, God has started building me up until today. So it's been about going into 5 years since I left the house. And I'll tell you that my marriage was not going to work. Because first, I was deeply wounded. And I didn't know how to deal with my wounds. And let me tell you this, I was carrying a heavy backpack full of rocks. And those rocks for me were wounds from the past. And then my wife, she's also carrying a backpack full of rocks from her past. And then what happens? We come together, we hold hands. In the first 2 or 3 years, there's passion, love, great sex life, all that. And you walking together, even though you're carrying that backpack, you don't really feel it. But after a while, man, you're holding hands and carrying that backpack and trying to walk, and you can't do it anymore. What happens? For me, I started using her as a crutch. So imagine, I had so many needs from her. Hey, I got married because of this, you need to give me this, you need to give me that. And then you're wondering why she was not so cute anymore after a while. And I started going outside. But all that was the wounds. So I used a crutch. She was using her crutch. And then we were trying to walk together. And we got to a point that we can't walk anymore together because of that huge, heavy backpack full of wounds. So going back to Jesus, I was wounded. I didn't know how to love myself. I didn't have Jesus Christ in my heart. So my marriage was not going to work. So I want to take a second here to talk about the biggest addiction that almost took me out. Pornography. You may be thinking, pornography? Yes. That's the pornography. Let me share some statistics real quick. I'm working with a ministry that help teenagers with pornography. Is one of the biggest in America. And my friend was sharing some statistic with me about a year ago. He said, Ariel, you know what the porn industry did about 8 years ago? He goes, the pornography industry was saturated with men. They were thinking, okay, how do we take this to the next level now? We need to get the females into porn. So they started doing more romantic porn to be able to hook the females. And man, they did it. So believe it or not, 8 out of 10 female teenagers that are going to college today in America, 8 out of 10 are addicted to porn, females. Did they get the job done? Yes. The evil industry, all the smart people got together 8 years ago to put a strategy to get our daughters' hearts and mind with this evil stuff. So pay attention. Let me share one more statistic with you. Porn they want to capture our kids' mind and heart. You ready? At 7 years old. 7. And today, let me tell you, all that is coming to this. So pay attention. We have to be not controlling. We have to trust our kids, but we have to also have guardrails. Have you been to the bowling alley? You know, when the kids is there, they put those guardrails. You have to have that. I have that in my phone. And then I also look at my girl's phone, not because I don't trust them. It's to protect them from what's coming into their phones. So be aware. Porn is destroying our families. I just wanted to say that. So fast forward, it was right in the mix of all that. I lost my job and I work in another restaurant, but I started becoming a volunteer with Greg, a Family ID. Family ID stands for Family Intentional Direction. So let me tell you, today we have taken Family ID to 13 countries, in Spanish-speaking countries. Yes, with Family ID. And I remember now, back in the hospital, 2016, in that mental hospital, God told me, I have a purpose for you. I didn't see it for a while. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't see the purpose for a while. But now I see it. My purpose from God is to help families to be restored. That is my purpose. And I'm leading Family ID with Greg and with someone else. But man, that is my purpose today, is to lead families. Let me tell you this. I'm pretty sure you heard this saying, make a lot of mistakes. You will learn from it. Yes, make a lot of mistakes. But I want to add something in the middle there. Make a lot of mistakes professionally at work. If you get fired, you will get another job probably tomorrow. But be careful with the mistakes that you make with your family. Because today, I'll tell you that door with my family is closed. And I've received so many confirmations, and that's okay. That's okay. Because my family is part of my story, but my story is about Jesus Christ. Because I have Jesus Christ in my heart, that's not going to go away. And my goal today is to become that man that God always intended to be. And it just took for me to open that door in that mental hospital. And I know today, I want someone to marry my girls like me today, not the Ariel that I was. And I told you at the beginning, this is not about me. And this is not about me. Oh, look how Ariel struggled. Don't feel sorry for me, because I have something that I never had before, and it's Jesus Christ. And that brought hope, light, unconditional love. I didn't know how to love myself. For sure, I didn't know how to love others. So make a lot of mistakes professionally. Be careful when you make a mistake with your families, because sometimes, guess what? You will not have a second chance. You will not have a second chance. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm not saying it. I'm okay with that. So thank you, guys. Thank you, Craig.
Ariel, thank you so much for what you shared. Powerful, brother. Very powerful. You know, I want to wrap up and ask you just 2 or 3 quick questions that kind of intersects your story at different intervals. Because as you know, our whole ministry is to restore the family too, blended together forever. Wow. How do you pick up the pieces after a divorce has occurred and you're trying to put a family together. And that also happens sometimes after death, where one partner passes on and then they remarry, and sometimes they bring kids into the mix. And
Wow.
so how it's a dance, and it's not just an easy step 1, 2, 3. But before we go there, I want to talk about the wound of a father. The second point, generational curses, and
Mm,
then we'll talk about how God restores families. Um, I appreciate so much what you shared about, your dad getting kind of taken out, and then you getting taken out as early as 11 years old. As sad as it is, that wound, there was nothing you incurred that. You were
mm,
inflicted, and we don't know how to deal with wounds as a kid. But I think what you shared, especially being, macho man, I got to handle it, I got to figure it
mhm,
out, and I don't cry and I don't tell anybody. That's why I think we have so many wounded men in America today. They've never acknowledged what's happened, and so therefore it can't be healed.
mm,
Talk to the man who might be on the brink right now by going, this makes sense.
mm,
I need to just tell it. It's not going to be easy. It's definitely not going to be fun. But Jesus can't heal it unless it's brought out into the light. I think of the verse that says, confess your sins one to another that you may be healed. And Satan wants to keep it in the dark, just like
right.
porn. And it's okay. There's no condemnation. Romans 8:1, no condemnation for those in Christ. So for the man that's wanting to come out, but maybe he's scared, what would you tell him to encourage him just to take that step?
Sure. Thank you, Greg. So John Eldridge, he's a pastor from Colorado. He always says every human being will have a wound from their parents. Every one of us.
Right.
They may be different. So my first tip will be dive deep into your heart. Dive deep into your heart. And it's not easy to remove all that and deal with it. It's not. It's painful. But let me tell you, deep into your heart and find those wounds. And then for me, Greg, it was surrounding myself with great Christian men.
Yeah.
That I can share everything. I have 2 or 3 guys right now that I can go to them and share anything.
Right.
That was the first step. And then they led me to Christ. I have two resources, huge resources, right? And then Christ, he a resource for me, was a resource for a while. Now today is my everything. But then also, along with that support, get some professional help,
Right.
a counselor.
Yeah.
And you said it, Craig, acknowledging. That's the first step, acknowledging. And guys, there's nothing wrong with asking for help. Even society today teaches that we can't ask for help. We're men. No, It's okay to ask for help. So mentors around you, good people that can pray for you, that can challenge you, that can hold you accountable. And then that for sure, the walk with Jesus, that's not negotiable. And then for me, and then for sure, get professional help at the same time.
Great. Second question. In the Bible, the Lord spoke way back in Deuteronomy, say, before you, I put blessings and curses, life, death, choose life. I want you to talk to what I would call maybe the naive Christian, like, oh, porn's not that bad. Oh, I just looked at it a little. It's really more towards men. It's not really trying to dress the ladies. And Satan's laughing because I got it. There really is generational curses, and what gets passed down, is a real spiritual battle. Porn, just one of those.
Mm-hmm.
But for the naivety, that maybe somebody think, oh, it's just between me and God. If I work hard enough, I pray hard enough, I go to church enough, it's going to be good. Well, yeah, I want you to pray. Yes, I want you to go to church. Yes, but there's a war that's going on. Talk about maybe somebody that's a little naivety about the battle is intense. We just can't see it for a second.
Craig, the battle is real. Let me talk about generational curses for a second here. So I discovered that my dad was abused sexually by someone in his family.
Makes sense.
I don't know, maybe his parents too, but I know my dad did. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, and my father were taken out by alcohol, by Satan using alcohol. Speaking about generational curses, divorces. Between me and Gloria, we're carrying 7 divorces. Divorces and separation. Between the both of us and immediate family, 7. Imagine. Speaking about, I just give you 3 powerful examples. And if you're out there and you think, no, that doesn't happen, it does. There's a battle out there in the spirit realm. And let me tell you, if we don't get ready, if we don't get prepared to fight, we won't be able to win. But God, Jesus already won that for us. We just have to get equipped.
I'm so glad you shared that. That is so powerful and so true. And then last, that, you know, God does restore everything. He redeems all of us. You know, like you said, we're all wounded, but that's not the end of the story. No. You know, send us off with hope and encouragement wherever we are as we're walking this journey, that God's not done. The story's not finished. He's still writing your family story or whatever story, but he really does make all things new. So leave us with something that could be encouraging to keep fighting the fight and loving the Lord, and send us off real quick, if you would.
Thank you, Craig. So I don't know what you're struggling with. You're watching out there. I don't know if you're struggling with porn, with alcohol, with anything, depression, you know, thoughts of suicidal. So whatever it is, there's something greater than that. Ask for help, push through it. And remember, in my case, my family was looking at me and they were waiting for me to do something, but I didn't know how. And God called us to be the spiritual leaders of the home. What does that mean? The person that initiates spiritual things. But until you get all that junk, you know, from the basement, right, deep in your heart, and you get it out and deal with it and heal, you're not going to be able to be that guy. But I just want to give you this a little hope. I was done with my life. I was done. But God was not done with me.
That's right.
So don't give up. Fight. Fight back. Fight for you first. Get those wounds out, healed. Ask for help. Have a mentor. Reach out for a counselor. And then in the process, you're going to have up and down, yes. But God will use every little bit of your story, every piece of your story, God will use it. And I remember that word that I heard in the hospital. There's a purpose. I didn't know what my purpose was. If you don't know that today, that's okay. But figure it out what your purpose is and keep fighting. Family is worth fighting for. You can do it. I know you can do it. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you so much, Ariel.